Hi, Sensei Adam. This is Monroe Mann for my Tae Kwon Do white belt test. Maybe soon we'll have something around my waist. So first is the attention stance from 3 angles. Then it is followed by the ready stance, which is from the attention, and then from the other angle. The next is the fighting stance. And the fighting stance is more square, shoulders forward, whereas if you switch to the sparring stance, it's more sideways and your legs are kind of in a straight line. So from the side, the fighting stance and sparring stance. And from this side, fighting stance and sparring stance. Next, I think I have to do the switching. Next up is the switching. So if you're in the fighting sparring stance, this angle, from this angle, all right. Next up are the hand techniques, the jab and the cross. And this will be from 5 angles each. So start with, I'll do the jab, and then I'll switch to the cross. So the jab. And if you notice, I'm pivoting my leg and my shoulder and my torso. It's not just like this. Everything is extending a little bit more because I'm twisting. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then the cross. Same concept. You're not just going like this. I want to pivot my shoulder, my torso, and my back foot as well. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, next. Next are the low blocks. So for the low block, come to the center and bring it into chamber. 1, 2, 3, 4. This angle. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This angle. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the high block is similar, except it's going up. From the front, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. From this angle, 1, 2, 3, 4. This angle, 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. And next, the kicks. So the front snap kick from 5 different angles, from the front first. And again, with this, you want to, I say again, but it's similar to Krav Maga, that you don't want to just kick. You want to lean back a little bit on the side that you're kicking on to allow you to have your hips to extend a little bit further. So from this stance right here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. This angle. 1, 2, 1, 2. Great. Next is the half roundhouse kick from 5 angles. Very difficult, Sensei Adam, but I'm not even a white belt yet, so I'm going to give myself some leeway. I've been practicing this for about a month, a little bit more than that. It's still difficult. So, 1 and back. 2, back. On this side. 1, back. Back. This side. It's uneven ground. That's my excuse. This angle, it's exhausting work right here. So you can see my feet, I'll go back a bit. This side. Okay. This side. I find this a lot easier on this leg. Switch. I suppose I should do that. 1, back. Try that one more time. So, good thing is, I got a long road ahead to fix that. So I'm looking forward to getting my feedback on what I need to do to fix that. Next, solo drills, pivot practice. So the first one, do that again. And then the second pivot practice drill, which I think is the harder of the two, is doing that 360. So we're trying that now. 1. The other foot. I think think I need to do that again. So second time I'll do it this way. Switch. Extremely difficult and extremely awkward, but got to start somewhere. And I'm hoping I can get some hints and tips to improve that. I know you said that just practice. I think you're right. I got 100 hours of practice left to go. I'm sure I'll get this into the right technique and form soon. Continuing with the test. So this is self-defense 1, which is high block and grab, and then straight punch. So if somebody's coming in with a punch coming in this way, the cross maybe from their right, step in, grab the arm, step and punch. Again. I think this is just 3 angles, yeah. So from this angle, step lock, grab, step and punch. And with the other hand, other side, it's similar in that step, grab, step out, and then block. Much more. Grab, punch. That's self-defense 1. I skipped the solo drill 2. I'll go back to that. I'll do that now. Solo drill 2. Low block, high block, front kick. So, and this needs to be from how many angles? From 3 angles. So from here. That's 1. This start over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pivot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think a little bit too many. I'll do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's the solo drill 2. Self-defense 2 is the low block, and then the instep kick. So if somebody's coming in, perhaps with a low roundhouse kick here on the right, my left, step, and block. Actually, I think I should be doing it the other way. Block. No, I think that's right. So block and instep. I believe that's right. Boom, boom. And I think I can, oh, maybe that's, I think that's what you said, is we use that as a pivot. So it would be boom, boom, and kick. Boom, and bounce. So we bounce off the toe. So if it's this side, boom, and an instep. Block, instep kick. Block, instep kick. Block, instep. Block, instep. Block, instep. Block, instep. Block, instep. Other side. Block, instep. Block, and instep. Block, and instep. Okay. So that covers the self-defense and the solo drills. The last is the kicking requirement. 10 front snap kicks. 10 front snap kicks with each leg in 40 seconds. So let's get to it. And as you said, I'm not going to count the time. I'm just going to do the 10 kicks and see how we do. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, well, I know that wasn't a minute. The question is whether I did them right, and I look forward to feedback. And I'm just going to check the sheet, make sure I didn't miss anything. Tension stance, ready stance, fighting and sparring, yes. Switching, yes. Jab and cross, yes. Low block, high block, yes. Front snap kick, yes. Half roundhouse kick, yes. Solo drills 1 and 2, even though they were out of order. Self-defense 1 and 2, even though they were out of order. And then kicking requirements. So, thank you very much, Sensei. And look forward to your feedback.
Hey Monroe, how's it going? So I just went over your white belt exam. I'm just going to go down my list and talk about some of the details. So first thing, starting off, attention stance. The only thing I have on this is knife hands. So make sure we're not having fingers separated or thumbs separated. Knife hand, just like that. So when it's by your side, here, whatever you're doing. All right, the next one, ready stance. All right, I saw this and what I wrote down on here was it looked really karate. So you went from attention stance and you crossed the arms and came down here. So that's really kind of karate-like. The way we're going to do it is we're going to step out with our left foot. I know it looks like my right. GMAU is backwards. But we're going to step out with our left foot as our hands come up. We're going to take a breath in. Notice how my hands do not cross. They're both palms up, and then they're going to start making fists as they come down as I breathe out. So I'm not going to have a hard hit, so I'm not going to go here or anything like that. Think of it like a meditative state right before you're about to do something. So take a breath in and breath out. And the heel of that back foot is going to touch the ground right as my hands set down into the position. And now as you're looking at me forward, you can see that my hands are at my belt level. So my hands can go down lower, below my belt. They're going to stay at my belt level, which means I'm going to bend my elbows a little bit, and I'm going to press forward a little bit. So I'm not way out here, but I'm not way down here. I'm going to have it here. If you're looking directly in front of me, you should be able to see the knot in my belt right in between my hands. So that's about the distance. And then I want about 1 fist length away from my body. Obviously, it's got to be a little bit different, but you want your hands right around your belt level instead of down lower or anything like that. All right, next thing is the fighting stance. So one of the things I noticed on your fighting stance is that your heels are really almost in line when you're doing your fighting stance. So I want you to be shoulder width apart. So if I'm standing here, say I just did, Junbei, I'm here, in my ready stance. I get a step back directly. So I'm not sure how well you can see this tape right here. Maybe you can see it. But I'm going to step back, and I'm going to keep that heel on that tape whenever I'm doing this, instead of kind of in line. I want to make sure that my feet are not in line, and that's really going to assist with our cross, especially being able to turn our hip behind it. If we're in line here, it's going to be pulled back. Our hip is not going to be allowed to be put into a lot of the punches. So make sure that we're not standing kind of in line. It's going to be more shoulder width apart whenever you're here, hands are up. Next thing was the sparring stance. So with your sparring stance, I noticed that you were bringing this toes inwards and bringing your knees inwards. You almost have a little bit of a like compression between your knees. So almost like you have a little rubber band. It's kind of what it looked like when you're here. And it seemed like they're kind of pinching in. Maybe you have tight hip adductors. I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen you do the splits yet. But try doing the splits or things like that to stretch out those hip adductors. I think those might be a little bit tight. Maybe not. But whenever you're doing it, you want to make sure that your front knee and toes are both pointed towards the front. The chest is going to be about 45 to 90 degrees off from the direct front, and our hands are going to be up. This one, our heel is in line. We want to make sure that it's in line, and that's mostly so that we can do any sort of a back split, whether it's a spinning kick or a back kick. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't telegraph the same way as if I was here and I want to do a back kick. I'd have to step over and do a back kick, or I'd have to step back. So it facilitates kicks a lot easier without any sort of a telegraph whenever we're standing in this bladed position. It also hides one of our main targets whenever we're in Taekwondo sparring. This hand covers the center and the head, and then this hand is covering right here. The back is off limits in Taekwondo sparring, so we're not as worried about that. All right, next was switching. So the switching, what I noticed that you're doing is you're bringing this front foot in first, and then you're going with the other one. So it looks kind of like this. Whenever you're switching, both of the feet are going to switch at the exact same time whenever you're doing this. So I want you to do this with a little bit of a bounce motion, and then imagine like you came off the air. Both feet came off the air at the same time. And you can practice it this way at first. Later on, I don't want you really jumping up high. You're going to have a little bit of a bounce. But both of the feet are moving at the same time whenever I'm doing this. Instead of 1, 2, where one foot moves first and then the other one, we're going to move both. So again, if you need to, you can practice jumping up. When both feet are in the air at the same time, it really helps you to kind of get it, that hip twist. And then the shoulders are also going to play a factor in helping you turn. So when I'm here, I'm pushing my rear arm forward and my front arm back. And that's going to assist in my turn whenever I'm doing that. So I do want you practicing with that bounce. It will facilitate that a little bit easier. All right, next, jab. So with the jab, you're rotating the front foot just a little bit too much. So what I noticed, let me show this from the side. So you're getting really good hip rotation in there, which is something that a lot of people really don't do in their jabs. But you're overturning this front foot, and from this angle right here, you can see how my heel is in front of my ankle. We don't want our heel in front of our ankle. So we rotate the foot. So let's use the reference point of my heel on this. I'm going to rotate my heel about 45 degrees. So here. That's about how much of a rotation I want for my jab whenever I'm doing it. I don't want to go, especially not past 90 where the heel starts going front of the ankle. That's just going to be a little bit too much rotation. You can see at that point, I can basically face all the way to the rear. The reason why we have that rotation is so that I can pop my hip into it without the possibility of twisting my knee, which if I really pop my hip hard and I'm trying to hit something really powerful and I don't rotate my heel, that's when I run the risk of popping my knee. So I'm rotating just enough so that I can rotate hard without risking knee damage. So whenever I'm doing that, boom, I straighten it, but I'm not putting that heel in the front. So that's a little bit of an over-rotation. If you over-rotate, that means you have to over-rotate forward, then you have to over-rotate backwards, and it's just a lot of excessive time and energy. When jabs are really quick punches. Most of the time, they don't really do anything other than keep a distance. So we're not trying to put that much energy into it. We're just kind of making sure that if we need to, we could have a nice, powerful jab without hurting ourselves. All right, now cross, you did a really good job of rotating on that one. That one, again, same thing, we don't want to over-rotate, but I didn't really see an over-rotation on your cross. The point of that is, and as long as we're standing in a more of a squared stance rather than a bladed stance, almost flexing the whole time. And this might be a hard thing to see, but like right now I'm flexing. like my fists are tight, I'm flexing, as opposed to I'm light, and then I want to add that tension at that very end. So a good way to practice getting around this is to open the hand here, make the open hand, and then relax, relax, and then tighten it at the very end. So I'm opening both my hands, you can see right through them, and then at the very end is when I'm going to make sure that I tighten them and put the tension in. But there shouldn't be any tension until right before contact is made. If you're putting tension in the whole time, you're going to be slower, you're going to be flexing the whole time, which is just going to be eating away at your energy. You don't want your energy expenditure that high. You want to only use it when we need to. Again, so it makes you slower and makes you more tired. So make sure you're staying nice, relaxed. But the actual technique looked good. High block. So the high block also looking good. Kind of the same thing, some tension. But on this one, I also want you to focus on getting this arm a little bit further away. So I saw once it was basically right on top of you, and that would be fine if you're kind of blocking maybe an axe kick, but we still want to reach out further with this. It gives us one more chance to intercept forward, but if something's coming down as well, boom, it can hit here. If I'm too bent, so let's say I'm bent at the elbow joint and I'm at 90 degrees or less is worse, but if I'm right around 90 degrees and somebody's pressing in here, my triceps are already pretty extended, which means they're going to be in a weakened state. I want them more in the middle where that's going to be able to generate the most power. So the muscles are strongest when they're not all the way flexed and they're not all the way extended, but right in the center, kind of at that resting position. So I want it kind of in the center, so not fully extended, not really bent, right there, but it's got to be over 90 degrees in that bend as well, or else it'll just collapse in on you. So make sure you get a little bit more distance and then a little bit more angle with that. All right, now we have front kicks. So on the front kicks, I don't know how the Krav Maga guys do them, but we're not really going to be tucking that back shoulder. I get the idea of that, but it's not going to be one shoulder versus the other. What I want you focusing on is the hips. So instead of the upper body, focus on the hips. So I want you really kind of squeezing the glutes on the base leg and think about pushing your hips forward, and that's where the reach is going to come from with this. Instead of here, what I noticed is you're really bending this base leg, make sure you can see, and your weight looked like it was pretty far back here to where that you were able to lose balance pretty easily. And if you made contact with somebody, you might lose balance there. We want to actually push our hips forward. Now, when you're training and you want to retract it back, that's fine. Push it, boom, and then bring it back. But a lot of time when you're actually going to be doing this, it's going to be a lot of forward momentum with your hips, and you're actually going to be forced to land towards the front. I usually do a training where I retract it just because it allows for training more control, but I want you thinking about the hips are what's moving forward instead of focusing on a shoulder. The next thing is I want you to really relax your upper body. So I want your hands to stay up, but I don't want them to stay still. So I want you to do what I call floating, at least. Your hands are going to be floating, so they're going to be moving up. The goal is to not let them drop below your belt, and that's it. That's really the main goal of floating your hands. The hands are nice and relaxed, so when I'm kicking, boom, I will move. I will use my counterbalance. And so a lot of time, and that kind of goes back to what you might have seen, or why the Krav Maga guys might say this, is to kind of throw that back, and it's because it's going to be using a counterbalance. So if you're here and your hands are really rigid, then it makes sense to think of your shoulder as your counterbalance. But a lot of time, I think of my hand. The hand's going to be the counterbalance. The hand's going to come off to the side, boom, and it allows for a lot more quicker without having to use the torso as much, which is going to slow you down a little bit. So in Taekwondo, we're more about speed than power. We do a lot of things that might not be as powerful, but I can get to you a lot faster. And if I can get to you faster and hit you, I can off-balance you or I can injure you before you're able to hit me with something powerful. So they're different concepts, little concepts that make different things work, and it really depends on your goals for it. But I want you to practice on floating these hands, boom, and kicking. So my hands move around a lot. I just don't want them coming down. So I don't want you doing this, where the hands drop below the belt, but I do want you to move your hands around a lot whenever you're kicking. Hands always moving floating around with your footwork. Doesn't matter. They're always staying up. They're always moving. Always relaxed. All right. Anything else? All right. Next one is the half roundhouse kick. So, all right. I gotta call you out on something first. So, what was the break divers creed again? No rules, no excuses, no regrets. Right? I wrote it down so I won't forget. And then you're gonna say that the uneven ground is your excuse. You're making up excuses. You're breaking your own rules. What are you doing? All right. Now that I've got that out of the way, yeah. So this is actually, in my opinion, the half roundhouse kick is harder than the full roundhouse kick, which is good. So when you practice something that's a little bit harder, the half roundhouse kick doesn't have as much application either. But when you practice it harder and then you apply it to something else, it makes everything a lot easier. So with the half roundhouse kick, the focus of this is really body alignment and balance, and then practicing that pivot. So I pivot, I get my body alignment, and then I can get my balance, and then I can come back. Practicing it outside is actually a lot more difficult. Practicing on grass is even more difficult with a lot of friction, and maybe some uneven ground makes it a little bit harder. But that's good, all right? It's good practice. So with this, a few things that I want you to try to do. Again, relax your upper body. Boom, upper body nice and relaxed. Next, I want you to do is I want you to practice going at this angle. So see my shin bone, how my knee is pointed upwards instead of here. And this is another reason why I kind of feel like you might have tight hip adductors, is because that's one of the things that will commonly happen is the knee will be pulled downwards and inwards. It'll internally rotate at the hip. So I want you to focus on this. So if you get into this position, practice this, opening that up and trying to have that upwards. A few reasons for that. One, it's going to help you have a lot higher kicks, because if I point my knee down and I extend, well, my kick is low, versus when I point my knee up and I extend, well, then my kick's going up. So it helps you have a higher kick. If you do decide to kick something hard, I usually tell people, so in Tae Kwon Do sparring, you're going to kick with the foot. That's how you score. But if you're going to actually kick something hard, you want to use your shin bone. Well, if you look at where the shin bone is according to the leg, shin bone is medial, it's on the inside, so that means I have to have my knee angled upwards, or if I have it angled downwards, I'm probably going to make contact with the anterior tibialis, which hurts. It hurts a lot. So don't do that. So try to point that knee upwards. And then I want you to try to practice balance. So I'm going to give you a balance drill. It's hard. It's a pretty hard one. It's going to be basically, the goal of this one is to go through the three main chambers. So the three main chambers are going to be the front chamber, the side chamber, and the roundhouse kick chamber. So from the side, and this isn't going to involve any pivoting, but it's really going to be hard for balancing. So from the side, I'm going to raise up a knee just like this. So this is the front chamber, right? Because I would be doing a front kick from here. Now the next thing that I want you to do is I want you to go and I turn this way, and I'm actually going to go, so I started that way, I'm going to go about 120 degrees on this one, and I'm going to point my heel, my head, hip, and my heel in line at about 120 degrees. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate even more, and I'm going to get my knee in line with my hip and my head pointed all the way towards the other direction. Notice the foot was 180 degrees away. So I want you to practice that. It's very difficult. So here, first chamber, front chamber, second chamber, side chamber, third chamber, roundhouse kick chamber, and then you can go back, side chamber, back to the front chamber. So practice going through that, practice on both legs. Once it becomes easier, which eventually it will, practice on a unstable surface. So if you want to use something like a mat, so this is actually a piece of these mats. You can practice the same thing on that. It gives you that the instability portion, and this will help you to practice your balance a whole lot when you can start doing it on something that's constantly wobbling underneath you, and then it just helps us stabilize your muscles, and that's going to make everything a whole lot easier later on. All right, Soldier 1. Soldier 1, it's really just half roundhouse kicks, just applied differently. So it gives me another reason to look for, or another scenario essentially to look for stuff. And then I'm also looking in the first part of it, how well you chamber from one right into the other, and you did a really good job on that. Soldier 2, on this one, again, there's that tension. The tension in your blocks, the tension in your upper body. So try to relax a little bit more on that. And here I also saw on your left hand low block, your right hand side elbow flares out. So what that means, so when you're doing the left hand, I know it looks like my right, when you're doing the left hand, it was here, you are flaring out this elbow. So instead of being here, tight, it was kind of flared out like that, and you did that a few times, like that. And then I also noticed a few times on some of the blocks, because you're kind of speeding it up and rushing it, the hand wasn't quite going all the way to the belt. It was here, so if you see my fist is in front of me, I want you feeling that iliac crest, the hip bone right there, through your belt whenever you're wearing it. But if you're not wearing it, then you should be feeling that. And if nothing else, just imagine that you're elbow striking somebody behind you. All right. That was it for solo drill number 2, self-defense number 1. So on this one, we're not actually stepping in first for a block, because this is going to be a straight punch. So the one thing we really don't want to do on a straight punch is move directly into it. That is not a good idea. So we are blocking, yes, but we don't count on the block to work. So the block is a secondary. The primary is to avoid or evade. So I want you practicing this one for more of a square position, kind of like oh, I'm just chilling, maybe your hands are down, whatever, hey, I don't want to fight, and then you're going to move. So you're going to, first thing is getting the head off line. So if you see GMAU, right, my head is in front of the M, so when I'm standing here, I'm going to move. And now I move and I block. Boom. And then I move and I block and I punch. Now, there is a grab. There is a grab there. Are you going to catch the grab there? You're going to catch the grab there 5 out of 100 times, if that. It's hard to catch a punch. If you catch the punch, awesome. It'll make you look great. Hopefully somebody was videotaping it, because everyone does, and you can post it on Instagram. But it's here. It's this side block, grab, and punch. It's all one motion, though. Here. If you try to do it 1, 2, that will never work ever. Never. Not once. Unless they're a really traditional trained guy who, for some reason, doesn't actually want to hit you and they want to, train. So, you're stepping here. Head moves offline as I block at that same time. Again, the block is secondary, head moving offline is primary. The grab happens while I'm punching. All of that's at 1. And then I want you to start practicing and adding this extra step in here. So, you've got your primary step to get offline. And then I want you to practice the secondary step to cut the corner. So let's say this piece of paper right here. That piece of paper is my opponent. My opponent is in front of me. They're punching. I step. And now notice I'm orientated that way. And I'm going to come back orientated towards them. So I'm cutting my angle as I get out of the way. I hit them. I'm reorientated. And I can do, whatever I want to do from that point. Hopefully I hit them and knock them out. I probably didn't, but at least I should have dazed them if I did hit them. So, again, key things there. Move your head out of the way. Never go forward on a straight punch. You're just going to, that's asking for trouble. You're just giving them more power behind their punch. It's like headbutting a punch. It's not something that you want to do. All right, self-defense number 2. So on this one, you stepped here first, and then you stepped with the other hand and blocked with the other leg, or you stepped with the other leg and blocked with the same hand. Good. I'm glad that you did that. So what that shows is it doesn't matter, honestly. So a lot of these things are really, there's something that I want people to just practice so that they can do it. But if you mess up and say the roundhouse kick's coming this way, and you step this way, and then you kick here, great. You blocked and you kicked. If you step this way and you block and you kick here, great. You blocked and you kicked. Now, there are more ideal times for when I would do one over the other. Now, if I was going to step into the kick is coming this way with my block. Hopefully I realized why I'm doing this. I want to do that before their kick has gained momentum and speed. So maybe they've thrown 1 or 2 kicks already at me, and I'm like, all right, this next one, boom, I stuff it. I go into it and I stuff the kick before it's gained momentum and speed. Or maybe it's the first time I've seen them do a kick, and I'm like, oh crap, they're throwing a kick at me, and I step this way because they intended on kicking me here. After that point, there's diminishing returns. Their power starts to diminish afterwards. So it's a much weaker kick when it makes contact. Plus, I'm moving in the same direction, kind of circular direction as the kick. So some of their momentum is eaten by my movement as well. So it's not going to be as powerful of a kick. So there's different times where I do either one. But honestly, if you blocked them and you got a nice kick to the groin, well, you're probably going to win that fight. And that's the whole thing. Most self-defense is ugly. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like some of the stuff, when I show kind of some of the grappling type things or escape from grappling type things, those have to be more on point. But some of these big gross motor movement skills doesn't really matter as long as you get the concept of I'm blocking, but I'm staying close enough that I can get a counter kick in quickly straight up the center. All right, so either way, kind of fine. Just I want people practicing motions and getting concepts down, so you're not really ever going to think about things whenever it's happening. You just do stuff. And the last thing I have is kicking requirements. So you did the 10 front snap kicks on each leg in 20 seconds is what I timed you at. So yeah, you definitely hit that requirement. You got 20 seconds left. All right, and that looks like that's about it. All I got. Man, it's hot in here today. I'm already sweating and I'm just talking. All right, well, congratulations on your white belt. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to send me a message. Have a great day.